So in a very surprising move, Twitch streamer MoistCr1TiKaL, also known as YouTuber Penguin0, also known as Real Human Person Charlie, has made an actual play podcast known as Skill Check. When I first heard he was making a D&D actual play, I was actually really excited. I always love when new people are able to get into the hobby, and a lot of MoistCr1TiKaL fans probably have only heard of D&D through passing, and for an opportunity to watch one of their favorite streamers play it, well, that's just a benefit to everybody. As well as the fact that we're in an age where most streamers just watch other people's content to pass the time, it's really good that someone out there is trying to take on risky projects. At the time of filming, only the first 3 episodes have come out, and I want to make sure that you know that I'm mostly focusing on how Skill Check is as a show. I'm going to talk a little bit about how it is as a game, but I'm not playing the game. It doesn't matter if the game would be fun for me. It matters if it's an actual play that I actually enjoy watching and if I would recommend to other people. Now, I know that my average views are basically nothing in comparison to someone like MoistCr1TiKaL, but I still feel like this is important to say. No matter how critical I get about how they play the game or how they run their show or about certain people, it is never okay to then go and harass those people. This is a review, so it is my job to analyze and critique. However, harassment is never an option that's on the table. Oh hi, Editing Nick here. I just wanted to ask you to please hit that subscribe button. I normally don't make videos like this, and this is in fact the longest video I've ever made on my channel, so if you want to see more like it, the only way I can know is if you click that subscribe button. Anyways, on with the video. Now the first thing I want to talk about is the announcement. I'm a D&D player, an actual play enjoyer, a critical viewer. I'm the exact target demographic for a show like this, and I almost didn't even know it existed. Firstly, if you want to find the announcement video, you have to go on the Penguin0 channel and look here. Yes, that is the video that announces the actual play. Now, I know he does basic titles and basic thumbnails for his videos, but it makes it really hard to know that this is even a thing that's coming out. To me, when I saw it, I just thought it was another critical video about whatever, and I wasn't really in the mood, so I just skipped it. I only found out because one of my friends texted me later to go watch that video. And the second factor is when I found this video, it was 11 p.m., so I was scrolling through it, I saw that he was making an actual play, and then I went to my group chat, commented, went to bed. I didn't actually realize that he announces when it comes out, because there's no visual thing to say that it comes out. He says it, but if you're just like watching the visual casually or just trying to skim through it so you can talk about it in a group chat, you're not necessarily gonna know that it's coming out or when it's coming out or where it's coming out. It wasn't until a couple weeks later did I go, oh yeah, what happened with that critical actual play? And then found out that 2 episodes had already come out. The date of the first episode coming out could have been in the description. The YouTube channel could have been in the description. He could have put text up in the video so that way you would see it when scrolling through when it's gonna come out. It is my fault that I didn't watch it all the way through, but it could have been easier to find. I'm not a marketing person, and hell, I'm not even halfway to being considered being called a YouTuber. But I feel like there should have been less steps I had to take to find this thing as someone who wanted to watch it. Now, that doesn't mean that the actual play isn't going to be good. Charlie knows that he can upload a video with a title like this and a thumbnail like that and still get 1 million views. Maybe they wanted to announce it so people knew it existed, but they didn't want the entire critical fan base coming to watch it. I don't know why they made the decisions they did, but for better or worse, that has nothing to do with the show's quality. And it looks like they got some really talented people to help out. I mean, apparently the cast of Critical Role helped with production. Charlie said that they put a lot of time and effort into learning the game. So, I mean, there's promising stuff here. The only thing we can do now is turn on episode 1 and see how we feel about it. So going into episode 1, it's important to point out that this is the roughest episode of the series. There's a lot of people who are nervous and camera shy, and a lot of new players who aren't really comfortable with how the game works yet. And as they go on, even by the 2nd and the 3rd episode, the players get much more comfortable and used to the game, and the episodes get much better. That being said, actual plays are multiple hour shows. And if your show starts out rough, well, there's a lot of times that people aren't going to be willing to get to that second episode because they watched the first one and didn't like it. So watching this, I kind of got the vibe that there weren't really any practice episodes, like episodes that were not filmed and just played so people got used to their characters. And I feel like this show could have really benefited from it because that would have given people a chance to get used to talking with people and interacting and not be as awkward and understand the rules of their characters and whatnot. And that's what I would have said, except for this part of the first episode.
Fair enough.
That's why you've gotten downed every game.
And you know what? I've done a lot of damage. And all of those games were non-canonically canonical, so we're good.
And I'm still fucking here, baby.
So there were practice episodes, which makes me wonder why they were so shy. I mean, if it is camera shyness, then unfortunately you can't get rid of that until you actually start recording. Which in that case, I'm glad they did the practice episodes, because I can only imagine how much more rough and awkward it would be without them. As someone with anxiety who's had to do live performance before, I can tell you exactly what this man is feeling, and he is about to explode. The first episode starts with the two dungeon masters, Drew and Ryan. Wait, did I just say Dungeon Masters? Yes, this show starts with and was marketed with 2 Dungeon Masters. Unfortunately, Drew leaves halfway through the first episode and he hasn't appeared again since. He might come back in the 4th episode, but as of filming, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. While Drew is there, they take on the roles of one performing the world actions and one character, and he plays a secondary character for the Dungeon Master, which I think really works. Like, the amount of times I've been a DM and my players bring 2 NPCs into a situation and they need to talk, and I'm trying to figure out how to back and forth show both of them talking, and I get really stressed out and nervous. Having someone else there who's just doing the lines of that other character, that seems really helpful. It's just really weird that he's only there for the first 40 minutes of episode 1, and then he's just been gone the rest of the time. It's possible that he has a larger involvement not at the table, but it would have been nice, because 2 Dungeon Masters is such a unique concept, if we were told how that works. But for now, starting the episode, Ryan leaves to let Drew set up the world. Now, the announcement video didn't really tell us what this game was going to be like. You can get a couple ideas from like the characters and the animation, but really we need to be told what this world's like. What expectations should we have for the world? Unfortunately, we don't get those. Instead, it starts off with us cutting to a brief montage of all the different members of the party, and then just jumping right into the game without us knowing how the world even works. I genuinely had to rewatch the beginning multiple times just to understand everything. They do not tell you anything about what's going on. It doesn't help that Drew starts off with a "you all see," and then immediately cuts to just what Charlie is seeing. Actually, no, it's worse than that. We cut to what no one is seeing because Charlie's character hasn't entered the scene yet. Sometimes these characters are very vividly described as being from alternative planets. Sometimes these characters are described from being from other planes, like one of the characters from Hell. So we don't really get a grasp of, okay, is this a space thing? Is this a planes thing? Is this a future thing? Is this a teleportation thing? We're not really told directly. We have to infer it from context clues, and for me it was a struggle. I can only imagine someone who has no idea what D&D is trying to figure out what's going on. I imagine it could not be very fun. It's not really great for the start of your actual play if the audience is already lost within 5 minutes of watching. If you're interested in watching Skill Check from the beginning and haven't started yet, let me explain to you the world so you understand what's going on going in. The world of Skill Check is in fact many worlds, many planets, many galaxies, many universes. This is a very futuristic setting. Space travel has not only been achieved, but basically perfected, as many variety of spacecraft to giant city-like ships to single one-man ships can easily fly through space and to distant planets. However, this is still a very magical world. Clerics still get their magical power from their gods. Druids still get power from the nature around them. Now, that wasn't a great explanation, but it was better than the nothing that we ended up getting. But I don't want to go on and on about this, so instead I'm going to tell you the cast and characters of Skill Check. Keep in mind there are some players and characters I want to talk about later, but I'm going to need to save that for later. So Charlie plays Hugh Fructose, a GIF plasmoid hybrid. Essentially, he's a giant hippo gummy bear who has found that his plasmoid body is quite useful for the job of an assassin. Chelsea plays Stewie, a Fearbolg bard who wears a flower on her head that was left behind as a clue for a lost friend. She's just about to pick up another one of these flowers when she's whisked away. Matt plays Shark Gorgon, a bugbear barbarian lawyer from hell seeking to win his final court case before he's also whisked away. Caleb plays Foray, a human pirate cleric with a Nicolas Cage impression. He seems to have some mission involving stopping someone from using fossil fuels, but obviously he also gets taken away before we get to hear much about that. Chase plays Seven, by the way, Drew's gone for now, a Warforged druid. Originally, he was used to fight in a war left to rust, but sometime later a mentor druid came by and taught him the ways of the forest. His current goal is to preserve and document all life that he can. He's just about to pick up a special flower when he's whisked away. Aaron plays Hemp Pumpo, a forest gnome wizard. He is also a hobbyist alchemist who is going after an important flower for brewing when he is also whisked away. Yes, that is the third time someone has been whisked away from a special flower, and yes, all three flowers are described as being different, so it's not trying to tie any of these characters together. I'm not sure if this was just a weird accident no one noticed, or if it's thematically going to tie into something later, but it's just strange that 3 out of the 7 characters have an important flower thing going on. Danny plays Valar, an Aasimar paladin. He comes from an Aasimar planet, which is basically a giant battle/training ground for young Aasimar where they go to hope to be called upon. Valar's Aasimar clan has been slaughtered after a betrayal, and with him staying against all the other Aasimar alone, he is suddenly teleported away to a bar. The thing about these characters that I want to talk about that most actual play don't do is that going in, we already know these characters' backstories. In fact, it is how each character is introduced. They tell us their backstory. In one of my normal games of D&D, all the players will know each other's backstories, even if the characters don't. This is simply because we usually build our backstories together, and plus, we're all DMs, so we're very comfortable with having meta knowledge. So if I know something, and my character doesn't know something, that doesn't spoil it for me. If anything, that makes me excited for when my character finds out, and I get to think about how they're going to react to that when it comes up. For some games, that might not work, but it works for us. So I have no problem from a game level on them doing this. However, I think there's an issue from an actual play level, from a story level. You see, the issue is when you take this from a game to an actual play, you're not just making a game for your players. You're also telling a story for an audience. The character reveal is an important part of the narrative. It's the show don't tell philosophy. People will want to stay around because we're interested in these characters and we want to learn more about them. If we already know everything there is to know about them, well then there isn't really much reason to stick around. Now Caleb's character is married to a dragon. It's one of the first things we learn about him. As an audience member, I now know that that's the biggest deal thing about his character, that he's married to a dragon. However, if I was an audience member and 7 or 8 episodes down the line, he reveals, oh yeah, by the way, I'm married to a dragon, I'm now going to think, what else is going on about this character? What else could be going on if he didn't even think to mention that he's married to a dragon? But the way things are now, I know that there isn't anything else interesting about him, or else he would have told us. Ending the character segment puts us about 17 minutes into the episode, so if you want to go and watch the show on your own, start from here. So Valar is teleported into a bar, where he speaks with a mystical person who tells him that he has to help out 6 other people on a mission, very clearly going to be our 6 other heroes, and then he is sent off somewhere else. That somewhere else is a magical museum. Now, is it another planet? Is it another plane of existence? Well, we don't know. The important thing is that all the characters are finally together. They're informed by a curator that they've been gathered for a mission. That mission is to gather different artifacts and people to help build exhibits for this museum. Which, side note, as a DM, try to be careful with your descriptions to not contradict your story. Like in this case, the museum is described as this huge magical place full of tons of books and knowledge. However, the whole idea of this mission is to fill up the museum. Now, I know that a museum can have lots and lots of books, but not a lot of exhibits. However, I feel like it makes more sense for the story for them to start out and the museum is totally empty, cobwebs and all, but as they go and slowly fill it, we see that change as more books and other things enter the museum, and it becomes this massive wealth of knowledge that it's supposed to be. A lot of DMs, when trying to make some place feel grand, they put a lot of grand descriptions into it, because obviously they're going to. However, sometimes you need to kind of downplay it a little bit so it can be exaggerated later. You can still make the grandness of the museum's size feel huge, but it should feel very, very empty. And as we go on this journey and we go back there, it'll feel more and more full. So that seems to be the concept of the show. These 7 unlikely heroes travel across the galaxy, if not across the universe, to gather artifacts and stuff for this exhibit to help it grow. The problem is, why should they care? The opening seems to describe each of the characters being ripped across the galaxy to be brought to this point so they can serve this purpose, with Valar seeming to serve this otherworldly purpose. But the biggest question I have to that is, what happens if they fail? What happens if they say no? I mean, I know there's no story if they say no, but what are the stakes to them not completing this museum? I say that because it seems like most of the party have important things that they want to accomplish, such as finding their friends or completing an important job opportunity. And are they really going to sacrifice that to help up this museum? From a game perspective, I understand. They want to follow the story forward, and this is obviously the plot hook they're supposed to follow. But from that narrative perspective, it doesn't really make sense for these characters to be doing this. I think it's part of the DM's job to make the motivations of the story and the motivations of the characters to intersect in a way that it feels natural for them to follow along with the story. I wonder if there's a context issue here. Like, they did say that they had multiple practice sessions, so maybe in one of those sessions, a player asked, hey, why would we want to do this? They were told, and then in the actual in-game session, they didn't think to ask because, well, they already knew. But obviously the audience didn't know. Now that's just a theory, but I think the narrative would have benefited a lot more if we understood why these characters want to complete these missions. Anyways, the party get teleported to a planet called Spaceport, and this is the first time we actually get to really understand a setting. You see, this planet had a cruise liner-like sized ship crash into it, and the survivors of that ship, instead of moving on, have actually built their lives on this ship. It's an entire settlement. This is actually the point where the show really starts to get legs. We're 45 minutes in, and we're finally at a point where it feels fun and interesting, and I want to know more about what's going on, and I want to see them try to complete this mission in whatever fun way that they're going to. They've come here because they're looking for a quartermaster, but at this point they don't really have a strategy on how they're going to find him. They're really just going around the bar and trying out different drinks and seeing what this planet has to offer, and that's fun. The planet even has like its own currency thing going on, which I think is a thing that's really underappreciated in most fantasy. Most fantasy that you actually have to play just do a standardized currency system, so to see different currencies for different places actually not only makes a lot of sense, but is really interesting. Now, from a show perspective, this isn't very good. Being 45 minutes in, there's a lot of people who started watching, got confused at the beginning, weren't really sure what's going on or why they should care, and then just logged out and never got to the point where it gets good. Or you're someone who has got to this point and you've been soured so much by the first 45 minutes, you're going to be thinking about the rest of the show negatively. I mean, even I got 30 minutes into the show and then stopped watching it to come back later, And actually, funnily enough, that ended up being a huge benefit to me because when I got to the point of them getting the spaceport, I was watching it or listening to it with fresh ears and could more appreciate the good things that were going on versus being bothered by all the things that were done poorly previously. So as the party are exploring the ship, they find a parade, and they need to get through it to get to the next place they were told to go. Charlie comes up with the idea of going really, really big and trying to scare everybody. Caleb follows that up very quickly by saying his character is going to pull out a whistle and start blowing it to try to get people out of the way. Now, looking at the comments of this video, there are a lot of people who call Caleb a problem player and point to this as one of the examples as to why. They see it as Caleb stealing the thunder from Charlie because Charlie had this really clever idea and Caleb insisted on becoming part of that idea. Now, I am going to come out of the gate and say that I don't think Caleb is a problem player. I think there's some things he should do to adjust his behavior to make it more fun for everybody, but I think it's more of just a difference in style of play versus actual problems with his play. You see, Caleb is an active player. He's going to get involved in any way he can. If his character is in a scene, his character isn't going to just wait around doing nothing. His character is going to be going around doing stuff. Now, in a smaller game, that wouldn't be an issue at all. I think it's not that bad for everybody to be collaborating and trying different things and exploring the world. However, when you have 6 other players in the game and you have only 2 hours an episode, you're really taking up a lot of the time on doing your own thing when you need to make sure that everyone is getting their chance to shine. Like, Chelsea only speaks a couple times throughout the whole session and only really speaks when prompted to, like in combat, while Caleb is being fully active in every scene that he's in, which is every scene. What I think the issue is here is people are noticing an energy imbalance. Caleb is going into this game giving 150%, and someone like Chelsea might be going into this giving 50%. Caleb needs to bring it down, but it's so clear he needs to bring it down because other people also need to come up. Plus, something a lot of the comments don't seem to consider is that Caleb is trying to get everyone involved in the game, and he seems to have a good attitude when things don't go his way. As they're exploring the ship, Caleb's character enters one of the rooms and rolls to investigate what it is. He sees that it's like an activity room where they plan activities and stuff, and he decides he's not going to tell the rest of the party. This has nothing to do with the quest, it's clearly just a joke, but Chase follows that up with another joke, saying that he just looks in and sees the planner on the wall and can obviously see what type of room this is. And if you listen to the comments, what happens next is Caleb throws a tantrum about how he needs to investigate the room before being able to see it, but that's not what happens. The first thing that Caleb does is start laughing. In fact, he's laughing louder than anyone else in the room. It's clear that he's a part of the joke. It's clear that he finds that funny. He does indeed go, oh hey, he needs to investigate. But it's clear that's also just part of the joke. He's playing into it. That's basically all I have to say on the Caleb matter. I do think he needs to bring his energy down a little bit to match the rest of the party. However, comparing him to someone like Orion from Critical Role, well, I just don't think there's enough evidence for that yet. So the party get to this new bar, and their goal is to find this particular person, so they start talking to the patrons to see if they can find him. The patrons don't like that they're asking about him, he is some sort of criminal, and that leads into a combat breaking out. Now, combat on this show is handled on a virtual tabletop, which financially is the most efficient way to run combat, so I understand why they do it, but the important thing is that I think this is the best part of the show, because everyone gets to show off their characters pretty evenly and fairly. And that's one of the benefits of combat in an actual play. You tend to see people who say they skip the combats because they find them boring, but there's a lot of character moments in there that you would miss if you do that. For example, Chelsea has some really funny character moments that she does with her actions. And we only get to see that because she is forced to act in this moment because it is her turn and only her turn. And finally, the episode finishes with them winning the combat and about to learn the information they need to go find this guy. So overall, what do I think about the episode? Well, I think the first 45 minutes or so are really, really rough and hard to get through, but I think the rest of the episode is a blast. It's funny, it's creative, it's interesting. People get more comfortable, they really get the momentum going, and it's actually a fun show. I think all the cast is really, really great, and I can't wait to see future episodes where they all get more comfortable with their characters and they all hopefully balance out. And I'm really enjoying the DM thus far. Honestly, he just seems like a really nice and friendly guy, and he runs what looks like a fun game of Dungeons & Dragons, and I enjoy that. Initially, my intentions for this video were to review the second and third episodes, but after watching them, all I really have to say about it is all of my complaints that I've said thus far kind of wash away, and everything that's good that I've said thus far remains. Honestly, I would recommend just starting from episode 2 and working from there. If you've watched this video all the way through and you watched the recap at the beginning of episode 2, you have enough information to just start watching from there, and that's when the show does start getting really good. Which really isn't that bad for an actual play. I mean, Critical Role, most people don't recommend watching it until 20 or 30 episodes in. What I find unfortunate is because of that rough beginning, there's a lot of people who would have enjoyed this show that aren't going to give it a chance. There's a lot of people who don't know anything about D&D, who could have gotten into it through this actual play, who aren't going to give it a chance because they saw the beginning, got bored, and left. There were already going to be a lot of Moist Critical fans who were going to watch it and not like it because actual plays aren't everyone's cup of tea, but I just wish that there was a larger onboarding attempt to bring people into this show who knew nothing about D&D or actual plays. Thank you so much for watching this video. I put so much time into this, so if you liked it, please click that subscribe button so you can stay updated on any future releases that I make. I've had the idea to do actual play reviews for a really long time now, so if you want me to make more, click a like or comment so that way I know you want to see more, or better yet, let me know of an actual play that you want me to review. Thank you again, and this is the end of the video.